Yo, how's it going? To back in the video, and today I'm going to be talking about why I think Nikola Jokic is the NBA MVP, and I do not think it is all that close. And the reason that I think this is for multiple reasons that I'll be getting to all in this video. So if that sounds something like you'd be interested in, watch through the entire video, and I'll be getting to multiple points why I think Jokic deserves the MVP this season, barring any crazy injury or crazy anything happening for the rest of this season, and I'll be getting into that. And if you are an Embiid fan and support Embiid to make the MVP, I'm not in any way bashing Embiid. I'm not in any way discrediting what Embiid has done this season. I just simply think Nikola Jokic, for what he's done, might deserve it a little bit more than Embiid, and in my opinion, it's not really that close, and I hope I can prove that in this video. So if you do like the video point, hit the like button and subscribe button in the episode word me, and without further ado, without running on too much, just get right into this video. The first thing I want to get into for this video is going to be that Nikola Jokic is doing more with less. Now, what I mean by this is despite the Denver Nuggets missing their second and third best players in Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. with injury this season, pretty much the entire season, Michael Porter Jr. has been out. He got hurt in the very beginning, and Jamal Murray just hasn't been there the whole season. So despite those two players being out, Nikola Jokic has still led his team to a very, very respectable record at 40-28, and they are currently sitting at the 6th seed in the Western Conference and are only 2.5 games away from the 4th seed, which is extremely impressive, as Nikola Jokic is the main driving force behind that, because usually when a team's second and third best players are out, it doesn't really matter who the first best, because they just won't be able to carry the team, at least not carry the team to as good of a record and as good of a position that Jokic has positioned them in. But due to how good he's been playing and how resourceful he is and what a great teammate that he has helped them lead to one of the better records in the entire league and maybe a potential of a top 4 seed in the Western Conference going into the playoffs by the time the regular season is over. But then if you go over to Embiid's side of things and you look at what he is doing, even before they got James Harden, because they got James Harden very recently, even before they got him, he still had players like Tyrese Maxey, who is looking like a potential star in the future. He has Tobias Harris, who although isn't having the greatest season of his career, he's still having a very solid season, and in no way is having a bad one either. Really, those two alone are more than what Nikola Jokic has to work with right now, because Tobias Harris is a ceiling at an all-star level player. Tyrese Maxey is looking like he could become an all-star level player and has played like one this season. And then not even just that, they also had great role players like Seth Curry, Matisse Thybulle, Danny Green, and they've had them all season. Now obviously Seth Curry is no longer on the team after the Harden trade, but even now that they made the Harden trade, they still have all those great role players just without Seth Curry, and you added James Harden. And despite all of that, they still have the same amount of wins as the Denver Nuggets right now. They both have 42 wins. So with that being said, it is very impressive that Nikola Jokic by himself is able to lead a team that pretty much has a big three. But even before Harden got there, they had a big three of Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid, and the team that only has Nikola Jokic on it has the same amount of wins as that team. So am I saying that all these wins are 100% on Nikola Jokic? No. And are 100% of the losses that Embiid has with the 76ers on Embiid? No, but it does show you how impactful Nikola Jokic is on his team, that his second best player in Jamal Murray, who is an all-star level point guard, Michael Porter Jr., who has been playing very well before his injury, and he's still able to lead them to this many wins, and he's still able to compete with these other fully healthy, star-loaded teams. It just makes it that much more impressive with what he is doing. And for him to be able to do all this and win the games at such a high level, despite not having as much as these other superstar-level players like Embiid have, is very impressive and is very much noteworthy and should go in consideration when the MVP is going to be voted on. Now, my second reason is going to be that he is more valuable to his team than Embiid is. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, Embiid and Nikola Jokic are extremely important to their respective teams. Obviously, I'm not arguing that one isn't, or I'm just arguing that Nikola Jokic is more important to the Nuggets, at least right now, than what Embiid is to the Philadelphia 76ers. Because look, if you take Nikola Jokic off of the Denver Nuggets, as they currently are, they are not a playoff team. This team, without Jokic, without Jamal Murray healthy, and without Michael Porter Jr. healthy, is just not a playoff team. There's literally no chance. One of their best players would be Monte Morris, Aaron Gordon, and Austin Rivers, and that is just nowhere near enough to become a playoff team. Like that, you're just not doing it. There's no star talent on that roster with how it is currently built if you take Nikola Jokic off of it right now. And even if you take a fully healthy Denver Nuggets team and only take Nikola Jokic off of it, they are maybe a play-in team and maybe like a 6 seed at best, and even that is being fairly generous, to be honest. But then if you look at the Philadelphia 76ers, if you take Joel Embiid off that team, now obviously they're probably no longer finals contenders, obviously, because Joel Embiid is the superstar of that team. Even with James Harden on it, he's still the superstar of that team. But even if you take this team before the James Harden trade, say everybody else on the 76ers before the Harden trade was playing, including Ben Simmons, but you take Embiid off of it, you still have a big three of Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons. You have great role players still with Seth Curry, Danny Green, Matisse Thybulle, all these great role players with a legit big three. You're still a playoff team, a legitimate hard playoff team and a hard out in any playoff series, even if you take Embiid off of this team. So I don't think you can argue that Jokic is less valuable than Embiid to his team. I think the whole argument is just not even close, because if you look at it, like I said, you take Jokic off the Nuggets, that team is pretty bad, especially with how it is right now with all these injuries they currently have. That team is a lottery team if you take Jokic off the team how it currently is. And even if the Nuggets are fully healthy, if you take Jokic off of it, they're still a play-in level team. They're nowhere near the contenders they currently are. But you take Embiid off the 76ers, obviously they're no longer maybe contenders, but they're still a very solid playoff team. They're one of the harder playoff teams, and they're probably a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. So I don't think it can even be argued who is the more valuable player to their own respective teams. Now, like I said earlier, both are very important, both make their teams contenders, and both are huge contributors to their team, but in my opinion, Nikola Jokic is much more valuable to the Denver Nuggets and what they do than what Embiid is to the Philadelphia 76ers. And now for my final reason. I left this reason at the end for a reason, because it has the most likeliness to piss a lot of people off. And in my opinion, it is just correct, and that is that Nikola Jokic is just the better player. Now hold your horses. I'm not saying Jokic is a billion times better than Embiid. I'm not saying he's on a different planet. I'm not saying he's on a different level. I just think Jokic is slightly better than Embiid, and this is the reason why. Jokic and Embiid, honestly, are pretty much the same thing. They do the same thing. They're both centers. They're both big men. Their only difference is Jokic can just do a little bit more than what Embiid can do when the ball is in his hand. As if you look at the scoring splits, really, they're about equal. And that is with Embiid averaging 6 more free throw attempts a game than Nikola Jokic is, which makes it that scoring being that close even that much more impressive, because Jokic is working for his buckets a little bit harder than Embiid is. Now, I know drawing fouls is a skill all in its own, but still, nonetheless, Jokic is making more shots. Embiid is just also making more free throws. That's why the scoring is so close. And honestly, offensively, both of them are about equal. And then if you go to rebounding, honestly, it's almost the same as well. I would give a slight edge Nikola Jokic just due to how much wider and bigger and heavier he is, but really rebounding is extremely close as well. But where things start to really go in Nikola Jokic's favor is when it goes to getting his teammates involved in playmaking. Nikola Jokic is arguably the smartest NBA player when it comes to basketball IQ in the entire league. And in my opinion, he probably is the smartest. For him to be a 7-foot guy that's that big, to be able to make some of the passes he makes are absolutely insane. Like, he's only averaging 4 more assists than Joel Embiid, but if you watch the games, it is more than apparent that Jokic is one of the best passing big men this league has ever seen, and he has some of the best touch. He's able to pass him open. He does no-look passes. He's just such a great facilitator and playmaker, and that's just something Embiid can't do. Embiid cannot facilitate an offense. He can't make for your offense. He can't be your primary passer like Nikola Jokic can, and I think that's just such a huge skill set when everything else is so close together, when their skills, like offensively, they're very close, defensively, they're very close. Although they do play defense differently, they're still fairly close when they come down to how good they are on the defensive end. They can rebound similarly well, they shoot at similar averages and efficiencies, but when it really becomes apparent is the playmaking, the smart, and the basketball IQ that Nikola Jokic plays with. Now, I'm not saying Embiid is a dumb player or anything like that. It's just Embiid has more athleticism, more strength, more speed, and more tools to work with than Nikola Jokic does, which is why Jokic has to be smart. He has to play the way he does, and due to the way he plays, I think it makes more of a versatile, more like a depth in his game than what Joel Embiid has, and in my opinion, that is what makes Nikola Jokic the better player than Joel Embiid. So for the reasons that I think he's more valuable to his own team, I think he's just the overall better player, and then overall that I think that if you take him off of his team, they're no longer anywhere near what they are, and that just shows you how valuable of a player Nikola Jokic is to the Denver Nuggets. But unfortunately, guys, that's going to be for this video, so comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think Nikola Jokic deserves the MVP? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like the video point, hit the like button and subscribe button, and mean the absolute world to me. And I hope you have a blessed day, have a blessed day, so you have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah, blah, blah.